in my mind, the way my mind works, it's like, oh, you have all this footage, you can put shots together in whatever order you want, that's not how it works with stop motion.
Welcome to the Finally podcast. I have an exciting episode today. We're here with Kelly Johnson, our motion design intern, and Renee Xiang, our assistant editor.
Hi.
And we're here to talk about our newly released company video that was an internal project, a labor of love, I guess some would call it, that shines a light on the origins of Bottle Rocket Media, the love affair that Brett and myself have had over the years, and how we've sort of incorporated creativity into positive growth for the company. So thank you both for being here.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us.
Let's start at the beginning. Renee, tell me a little bit about this project and why we decided to make it.
Yeah, so this came across my desk as originally it was just another marketing request from Tamika, who is our head of marketing. And I think she saw a video on TikTok of another video production company, and they were introducing their two founders. And we also have you and Brett as our two founders. So she was like, oh, let's do this for Bottle Rocket. The more we talked, the more we were like, we should actually do something cool for this, because if it's going to be the first thing that people see, it should be something, memorable and unique. So eventually we landed on an interview with you and Brett about the story of you guys founding the company, and we wanted some sort of graphic element to it. We weren't really sure what it was going to be. And then Kelly came along. She joined our team as the marketing intern, and I was kind of talking to her about it, and she was like, what if we did stop motion? I was like, that's perfect. Yeah, that's kind of the story of how the project started and got to where it is now. I'm really happy with where it ended up. Yeah, Kelly, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I think, I love doing, stop motion, kinda like paper, kinda things like this, so, I was really happy to kinda, push my agenda on that, but
Well, let me interrupt and say that's what I think is one of the more exciting or interesting parts of this project is, a lot of times in business, in the creative business, it's about timing, and it's about how to, you might not be might not be completely clear on what your end vision is, but a technology or an opportunity presents itself that that pushes the agenda one way or the other. And Kelly, when we met you, you were already doing stop motion. That was the thing that you put in front of us in order to win the internship, in order to beat out the others. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that you were here and we decided to do stop motion. It was like, this is something new for the team. And,
right.
it inspired us to experiment with it.
Yeah, it was just really cool to see, and, Renee's perspective as an editor, I think informed it a lot as well, and, yeah, it was just kinda cool to have everybody's different, skill sets brought on, and Kayla and Jasmine helped us a lot, from the marketing team. We kind of, brought them on to help us cut out all the millions of little pictures, and, Jasmine helped us with some of the shooting and stuff, so it was just really cool to get make kinda like a team effort, and when we were shooting that everybody was coming in and, kinda, poking their heads in and seeing what we were doing and stuff, and yeah, it was just a really fun, collaborative kinda thing.
The audio bed for this is particularly noteworthy. Renee, talk to me about how you came up with taking, two 30-minute interviews and creating, this really unique story that you did.
From the start, Kayla and Jasmine knew. They were like, we want it to be under 2 minutes. But the interview that we did with you and Brett, I think they both went over 30 minutes. But that's great for me as an editor because it gives me more content to pull from, and I can really stitch this story together of, like, how you guys met and how the company started. I really just looked at it from the standpoint of what would I wanna know about you guys if I didn't know anything about this company. So, I kinda looked at it as, like, what resonated with me emotionally, and we were very adamant that we didn't want it to feel like a promotional video. We didn't want it to be like, "These are the service lines that Bottle Rocket offers, and this is why you should work with us." We wanted it to feel just very human and talk about, like, just your guys' connection because you have a very special relationship and you have been friends for a long time. And then the cutting it down portion, that I got a lot of help from Carrie, our producer. She, I think, has a really keen eye for, like, what needs to be in there and what we can cut. So I always look to her for like, "Hey, Carrie, do we need this line in there?" And most of the time, her answer is probably not. So I
Right, if
think
you're asking the question, you already know the answer.
right, yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting to watch because knowing that, this one was about me, as I normally do, I kinda shy away from it. And so I really had no idea what I was gonna watch when I hit play. I got feels from it. It was good. It was
That's
good. Okay,
good.
cool. So we're there. So the audio is cut, and you're like, "Now what are we gonna do? These guys look terrible on camera. What are we gonna do to cover them up?" And you're sitting around, and Kelly goes, "Well, I'm really good at stop motion." At which
Yes,
point you're like, "Hmm,
that's
that's a
exactly
great
what happens,
idea.
yes.
That's a great idea." And so then what happened? Kelly, pick up there. What happened next?
Yeah. Yeah, so Renee and I were kinda, like, really excited at this prospect, and everybody, when they hear stop motion, it's kinda like, "Oh, that's gonna take a lot of time," and, it's kind of, like, daunting, so
Mhm.
we were thinking about, previously I had done my work. Me and Renee both went to DePaul. So I did my work with, like, the school, like, stop motion studio and the Dragon Frame software, but we're like, "Okay, we don't have any of that." So, we brought Matt on, who is the director of photography, and, we kinda asked him, he sits in between me and Renee, so he gets pulled into our conversations every so often, so we were like, "Okay, we have this crazy idea, like, could you help us make some kinda, like, homemade down shooter setup?" And, he started doing his thing and he was like, "Oh yeah, we could get the sandbags and, a counterweight." And then we had to think about if we were gonna get the software because we kinda had to, like, pitch it to you and Brett and, it was a purchase, so we had to we were taking a risk. We weren't sure if you guys would go for it. So, um, yeah, from there, basically, once we got, like, the logistics kinda set up. Yeah, our scripts they were, like, crazy, like, writing all over. Renee had a bunch of little thumbnails and, I was, like, highlighting, like, "Okay, this we can do in After Effects, this we can do, with handwriting, this we could do," we were just kinda going all over. And, the inspiration that Renee had, that, film used a lot of, like, literally, like, almost junk, like, physical stuff. Um, so yeah, that was something we were like, "We're really gonna have to just tell Brett and Dan, like, anything you have." And Dan, I know you spent a night going through all your stuff, but you
No,
delivered very much on that.
Yes.
yeah, no, it was
And
great. It was actually,
yeah.
like, a lot of fun. I spent, probably an entire Sunday in my crawl space. Like, I still have old negative from videos I shot, decades ago. I've moved with them so many times, they're probably disintegrated. I don't know why I have this stuff, but it was kinda great to, like, go take a little bit of a walk down memory lane, and I found a whole bunch of stuff because, of course, as it would happen, I found a whole bunch of stuff after you guys were done shooting that I'm like, "Oh, this was even better."
No, yeah, it was perfect. We had a lot of fun with it, and I think our age was showing a bit. We were like, "What are these called?" Like the the hard discs and stuff.
Floppy something.
Yeah, we're like,
Yeah,
"Isn't this a
yeah,
floppy disk?" And
Yeah.
that was
yeah.
pretty funny. But yeah, it was honestly like a really cool opportunity to kinda get a peek into your guys' history and, like,
Definitely.
just kind of the scope of your work together and, like, all the things the company has done too. I know Renee, like, went through, some of our different reels, and
Mhm.
there's that one shot where it's, like, the camera viewfinder that's, like, scaling up, and we kinda wanted it to be, like, a chronological, so we went back to, like, w okay, what are some of the first projects that you guys worked on, and then going up to, like, our most recent stuff, so yeah, it was a really cool opportunity.
What's the thought process? What's the collaboration between the 2 of you and the marketing department that allows for doing things like the phone animation and the voice bubble and that kinda stuff? Like, how does that talk to me about that sort of collaboration, how those moments came about.
We did a lot of pre-planning because we're like, "Okay, we took over the conference room to shoot this. That was our makeshift studio, so, and everyone was kinda asking us like, "Okay, like, how long is this gonna take?" And I think initially I was like, "We could do this in a day," which was funny. Um,
So how long
but
did it take? Give me the details on how long it took,
yeah.
what you thought versus what's the reality.
Yeah, so the actual shooting itself, we did it within 1 week of being in office, so I think it was 3 days once we had, like, the script broken down, and we kinda separated it into, like, chunks, based on, like, kinda the themes, and I think Renee did a great job with, like, building that kinda structure with the edit. So then I made, like, a really scratchy stick figure animatic, and we showed it to Carrie and Dan Wolfing, the creative director, and, just to kinda get it was literally, like, scribble writing of, like, "This will have old photos," and then, that kinda thing, and then, yeah, we decided to do 6 frames per second because it was easier, and also we're like, it lends to the style. We kept saying, if we wanted it to be perfect and, like, look like professional shot video, like, we would have done it in After Effects or in a different medium. So, all the footage that we printed, like, we had to print, like some of it was, like, I think almost, like, 300 pages of, like, frames of videos we printed, and we printed it, like, on the office printers instead of taking it to, like, somewhere where we could print it really nice. We wanted it to be, like, a little low quality, and then we took, like, X-Acto knives and we scratched up the frames, and, we wanted to give it, like, a lot of texture. So, that's what I mean in the sense of, like
Intentionally low fidelity
Right,
intentionally low fidelity for the emotional components.
Mhm.
right. Yeah, and we wanted it to, yeah, kinda add to the human feeling of it and find the balance between, doing stuff digitally through After Effects, whether, like, pre-production, post-production, and then also doing stuff in camera because I feel like with stop motion, there's a fine line to walk where there's certain stuff you can get away with, like, the entire first shot with, like, the drone and your pictures over it, I had to, like, completely rebuild that in After Effects, but I still wanted it to look like we did it in camera.
Like, we didn't wanna just show, like, you and Brett sitting down on camera and talking to the camera, so, yeah, when Kelly came in and she was like, "We could actually do stop motion," it was like a whole new world was open to us. We wanted people to respond to it emotionally, and I think there is a lot of emotional response to nostalgia, and stop motion can feel very nostalgic because 'cause you're using, like especially because 'cause we're using all of these things that we've gathered from you and Brett's life, it's very emotional and it's very human, and I think that's the route that we wanted to take rather than, like, let's make, like, an Apple commercial, with, like, super, like, smooth motion design elements. I mean, we definitely, like, talked about a bunch of different things, but I think the reason we landed where we did is because I think especially today, there is a big response to, like, seeing something that is handmade, and there's obviously, like, a human element to it and a lot of time put into it and like, care and detail.
I think you both nailed it from a creative standpoint and a production standpoint, but also, from a company standpoint. We always are trying to encourage, original content, and whenever we do original content, we get recognized for it. what was the post-production process like once all the frames and the footage was captured? Because that's a little bit unclear.
Yeah, it was intensive, I'm not gonna lie, there was a lot of post-production work, Renee and I had this, like, running joke while we were shooting that we kept saying, "Oh, we'll fix it in post, we'll fix it in post," any little thing, 'cause, it was, like, a bit tiring at times doing the shooting and, like, every single frame having to move stuff, so, um there was a lot of things where we were kinda just like, "Okay, we can do this later." So a lot of it was kinda compositing work. So, for instance, I know you mentioned, like, the phone ringing shot. So, the timeline where it does that kinda, like, scroll through the years, that had to be constructed because I think we wrote the wrong year on one of them, and the speech bubble was completely separate. That was done a lot in After Effects. I actually part of it was just done on a sheet of printer paper, and I scanned it and then, like, piece it together to make it give it, like, that moving hold, and every frame was, like, done to some degree in camera because that's kinda like I was saying, like, that balance of keeping it that authentic, like, style of stop motion. I knew, like, from previous projects I've done in stop motion that it helps a lot. Like, even just, like, that printed texture, you can't really replicate that super well in After Effects. Like, nowadays, we can all kinda tell when it's done, like, artificially. So, yeah, honestly, while it was a time-consuming process doing the post-production and there was a lot, like, I had, like, a spreadsheet of all the things because there was a lot we had to fix, hundreds of frames, right? So, I take them into After Effects and I just put each of them like I said, we work at 6 frames per second, so I had them all just as a standard, like, 1 frame, so 1/6 of a second, and then I just sequenced them all out based in the order that we shot them in. Dragon Frame has a nice, like, organization system for that, and then I had to go through kind of frame by frame and say, "Okay, this frame is a little off," so I would take out, like, individual frames and then move everything up, and then I would show Renee and be like, "Okay, does this look better or did it look better the first way?" And, yeah, there's a lot of very meticulous and every time I showed Renee something on my computer, she was like, "Oh my god, this file is, like, a disaster because it was just scrolling through all the little frames was a different layer, you know?
What do you mean
Um
your timeline?
yeah, my timeline in After Effects, it was, like, an actual disaster. The animatic helped a lot, but it also helped when we shot it that we had, like, that animatic as a reference layer, so everything was kinda timed out pretty well, so because we spent so much time doing, like, prep stuff, it was pretty smooth in that sense, but, yeah, it was a lot of editing and going literally, like, frame by frame and, "Okay, this little aspect, I'm gonna take the way that this little object in the corner looks in the last frame and switch it out in the next frame, but leave everything else the same. It was a lot of stuff like that.
So if I understand correctly, the animatic is what provides structure. So there's a script and there's an audio bed, and that provides the ultimate structure. But then by having the animatic and knowing what you're doing ahead of time, it really guides you in the process. How much of the process after everything is shot, even with the animatic, allows for improvisation or last minute late inspiration to do something different?
As an editor that works a lot with, like, documentary or short form commercial, you're very run of the mill, like, what you think about when you think of editing. I think stop motion presents a very unique challenge, because so much of what you shot, it's like that's what you have. That's all you can use. You can't really and because of the way that we shot it, it was like we wanted everything to feel very, cohesive, so a lot of the scenes would flow into each other. So that doesn't give you a lot of opportunity to be like, "Let's cut from here to here," and, like, there's not a lot of things that you can rearrange after you shoot it, um and I think that's a very unique challenge of post-production with animation work and with stop motion, and it's kind of intimidating because it's like, once you're like once you wrap, it's like, "Okay, this is what we have. N now what?" You know? And so Kelly mentioned, like, a lot of what we were working with, like, we can only really work with what we got in camera. It's not really like you can, like, slap a PNG on it afterwards and, like, it's gonna look the same, you know? So, I think that was a little scary to me as an editor because it's like, in my mind, the way my mind works, it's like, "Oh, you have all this footage, you can put shots together in whatever order you want," you know? That's not how it works with stop motion. So, it was intimidating for sure, but I think it was also a little bit exciting because the permanence of what you shot is kind of like it challenges you in a way to, like, think about how can I, like, edit this, you know? Like, if there's something that's not working, you kinda have to be a little more creative about what you do to fix it, you know? A lot of what we did in post, and I'm very glad because Kelly has a lot more knowledge of compositing than I do, but a lot of it is very, like, sneaky editing and stuff that, like, if you're watching it, you're not gonna see, like, "Oh, there's a cut right there," you know? Or,
Mhm.
like, "This piece of the frame has been rearranged and, like, we moved it somewhere else and, like, we did surgery on it in Photoshop." So, I think for me, it was, like, scary going into it because 'cause I'm like, once we wrap and, like, we take this camera setup down, like, there's not a lot that I can do because from my point of view, it's like, as an editor, I think you hear a lot of, like, directors and producers saying, like, "We'll fix it in post," without any knowledge of what it actually takes to, like, actually fix it in post, but Kelly and I were in, I think, a unique situation because we were in charge of pre-production and production and post-production. So, when we were joking with each other in production saying, like, "We'll fix it in post," it's actually, like, a problem for our future selves to solve, you know? Um
Yes, I do. I've been in that
Yes.
situation many
I'm sure
times,
you can relate as well
you
then.
know? For me, it crystallizes itself in, um, being on set and running out of time and
Yes.
just
Yeah.
knowing, like, I'll just figure it out in post. Sometimes it's like I'll just paint out, there's a painting on the wall or a hole in the wall or whatever. I'm like, "I'll just paint it out later," that
Right.
kinda stuff.
Yeah.
The kinda stuff that Dan Wolfing, doesn't talk to me, for a month out of anger.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. I think it was the last day we were all technically in office for that week, and we're like, okay, we could come in tomorrow and finish this, or we could just we're already like in a kind of like a flow state where we could just sit down and knock it out. And so we were there, I think, till like 7:30 or something, and we kind of captured Jasmine to stay and help us. But I think that was like we were so tired at that point that there was a lot of stuff where we kind of were just like, "I don't even know how we're gonna fix this
Right,
after the fact, but we'll figure it
right.
out." Because so
When you're in the flow state, you gotta keep working. I mean, anybody who works in post knows that it's typically not 9 to 5 'cause, I mean, when I was editing, I could really first get into it on hour 4 or 5, like, really just spend time noodling with the footage, and then next thing you know, boom, and you're like, "I gotta stay because it's fresh in my brain now." But there's also the fatigue component of, like,
yeah.
when it becomes diminishing returns and when you have to know when to, like, hang it up and walk away and pick it up the next day. Yeah. Okay. You might have touched on this already, Renee, but,
Mhm.
as the stop motion newbie, what's the one big lesson?
The one big lesson, Dan, you and I have had conversations about this in relation to, like, where AI is at today and, like, how a lot of things are built for our convenience. I think there is a lot of value in doing something that's really hard and really meticulous and not always the most fun. Um, I learned that I learned that a lot through this project. I think especially just the production aspect of, like, you're literally capturing everything frame by frame by frame, and, like, you have to line it up to the last frame, and it's, um it's not always, like sunshine and rainbows. Kelly and I ran into a lot of, like, roadblocks while we were working, but I'm so glad that we chose to take that avenue instead of, like, any other avenue. Like, I'm glad that we did it by hand, you know? We put the time in, we put the hours in, and in post, I am really grateful to have been presented with a challenge that kind of forced me to think in a different way and, you know, do something that I wasn't 100% comfortable with because I came out of it and now I'm like, I can make I can make a stop motion video about anything, you know? Whereas before I'm like, I don't know anything about stop motion, just that one 20-second video that I made 4 years ago.
Right. Not only
Yeah.
that, though, you stretch the creative muscle that
Yes.
that force you to think differently just to
Mhm.
slap you out of your normal day to day.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. Kelly, what about you? As the BRM motion design veteran, is there anything you would have done differently on this project?
Um, yeah, I think and I know when Brett agreed to get us the Dragon Frame software, he said, "My only request is you use it more than once." So I think, Renee and I both are really excited to use all the stuff we learned from this project and, you know, find other ways to apply it, but I think, you know, I was so worried about all the prep stuff, and as much as I said that that was helpful, I think what I took away from this was, leaving room for kinda, like, improvisation, and, um, there was, like, this one long continuous shot that was almost like the second half of the entire, you know, like, video, and we had this whole plan for it, and we ended up scrapping it because it just wasn't looking good, and that's, like, kinda my favorite part of the video is the second half that we came up with on the spot, so I think that is one big takeaway for me, and then also being a little more open to doing stuff in post, like that one shot at the beginning that was so painstaking to edit. If I would have just said, "Okay, let's shoot this in 2 parts, let's do the background and then shoot the pictures on top separate," it would have saved me so much time, but I was, like, kinda being a little too particular about it, so, yeah, I think that's my main takeaways.
Very, very, very quickly, for the tech nerds out there, list for me all the software that you used for this to create this project, and maybe if you know what camera we used as well.
Oh.
Yeah, so okay, so, um, first off, I did the well, Renee did the editing for the, like, cut of the interview in Premiere, right?
Mhm.
And then the animatic that I did was in TV Paint, which is, like, a French animation software, that's just what I used in school, so I'm comfortable with it. Then, the more intensive version of the animatic was done in After Effects, and, a lot of work in Illustrator for, like, those little icons where we're talking about the service lines. And then I don't know the camera that we shot it with, that would be a Matt question,
Yeah, it was a
but
Sony, I think?
Yep,
yeah,
Sony
probably,
something.
yep, yep.
yeah, and Dragon Frame is what we shot it all with,
Mhm.
which was awesome, and we had, like, the little Dragon Frame controller that, like, saved us. And then afterwards, Renee, did you do the audio in Audition or Premiere?
The audio is also Premiere. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also wanna give a shout out to Renee, she really transformed it with the sound and, like, the music that she added. It made me, like, emotional watching it the first
Yeah,
time with the
I
sound.
would agree.
Yeah, and I know she referenced, like, the movie Up, like, the montage that's, like, all emotional, she used that as, like, the inspiration for the music. But, not to get off track, but other software we used after was just a lot of After Effects, a lot of Photoshop, and I think that's it.
Cool.
Google
Great.
Docs.
Oh, yeah, and Google
Shout
Docs.
out Google Docs.
We used
Shout
a
out
lot of
Google
Google
Docs.
Docs,
Always shout
actually.
out Google. Awesome.
Yeah, for
Well,
the printing.
you both know this by now, but, collaboration and staying creative and inspiring one another is really at the core of what we like to do, at Bottle Rocket, and, you nailed it. Good job. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for
I guess
trusting us with this.
yeah. Yep. I guess that wraps up this episode of the Finally podcast.
Awesome.
See you, at the office tomorrow.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
See Thanks, Dan.